to Dark Dominion. These actual corridors are, so for Deemish and Darm, just a little bit too late to the party, so they're not going to be able to pick anything up just yet in terms of tags or elimination, but at the same time, ortho of the map, got Flixie and Chap, definitely one of our leading duos in terms of namesake power, and Levin, the Desk kind of touched on it, but throughout the offseason, the results not necessarily pandering out to the direction of what you would anticipate for that team, but hold that thought though, Zangi, Belusi, getting a little bit active right now. They're finding a nice elimination onto Eddie, still playing inside the storm themselves, but that is going to buy them a little bit more time to kind of idle around for some loot.
Minori and Darkos here in the storm. Always going to see a bit of storm fighting again. We've seen it already in the first two heats a fair amount. I'm sure we'll see these two teams going back and forth throughout the day. Right now it looks like Darkos potentially getting the better of it. Getting a couple tags, taking shots in the back.
Just waiting to see really which teams are going to be dealing with those threats of the surge ticks later on. Saw how prevalent of an issue it was. Even both the lobbies, Heats 1 and Heats 2. Obviously, it's bound to be a problem yet again for some teams here today, but Sky Scroll hoping to avoid all of that.
Yeah, and the analyst talked about how Sky and Scroll, it feels like nothing changes for these guys. They're just doing the same things over and over. And if you told me this was a game from last season, Chapter 7 Season 1, I'd believe you, right? The setup looks very similar. You see Sky based up on that hill, Scroll in the POI, farming and collecting heals for the team. And funnily enough, Hydro sat in a spot that we typically see him in as well when he's in the same tournament as these guys. So again, familiar setup. Hopefully for them a familiar result in this game. Going right till the end, Chino and Pablo will be looking for the same. Dominating Sandy for much of this year.
Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I can't fault the mentality there between some of these teams. And for Chino and Pablo, I mean, you already kind of hit the mark with it. No one's really interested in contesting them. Teams that have tried to contest in the past, not necessarily voted the best results. And so it is impressive to think that they've been able to kind of hold on to their namesake like that.
Yeah, what I really liked about them is that in season, and they were sort of splitting it at times, and they came through this season and said, nah, we're not doing that no more. We want the POI. If you want to land here with us, we will fight you. And I think the right decision for most teams to avoid that fight. Chino and Pablo, both unbelievable players when it comes to showing off their mechanics and fighting. The two best fighting players a lot of the time last year alongside Fredoxy and Trios. They showcased that on the global stage, which is no bigger stage than that one in Fortnite.
A lot of company though right now surrounding Dark Dominion, Deemish and Darm. They might just have their pick of the litter, practically playing out of their own backyard here, and knowing that they didn't have to initially go for any sort of immediate fights off spawn. Just a little bit more of like a loot split, but having the bulk of the control of the POI like we marked earlier. Still waiting to see just how exactly they intend on cutting off some of these teams that are looking to kind of rotate through their current position. Asa and Podesai might be how they actually choose to play through those tunnels whenever they actually come for the surfacing, but other teams kind of facing up around those exit points is likely going to stay in the back of their minds. Tripper and Hellfire certainly look like one of those duos.
Yeah, it was an interesting position there for Darm and Deemish. I think it's going to sort of work out for them, but you can see they sort of wanted to move somewhere where they could maybe refarm and get it. That, again, there's so many teams in that area. You really don't want to risk taking damage, so they'll have to be cautious. Over here at Humble, a bit more freedom to move if need be for Nebs and Nathan. He wondered whether or not they'd be able to handle the off-spawn situation here at Humble, and although we didn't quite see how it unfolded to start the game, both players being up and healthy without any eliminations hopefully means something was worked out there.
Ideally, it'll mean they were still able to find their surge somewhere. I mean, with the surge base as tall as this one, you can anticipate that they're likely able to connect a handful of tags, but low foot traffic does make things a little bit more complicated heading into the mid-game. Robob and X-Force, they've also chosen to lock down a little bit of position here, but it's time to move. They want to beat the rest of the pack. They don't want to get trapped into any sort of congestion. If they can take over hill face, that'll probably be their best bets for a slightly elevated position. I've drawn a little bit of lobby focus, though, largely just shots from Moneymaker and F9, but won't deter them too heavily. I mean, 2 pizzas, 4 overdrive grenades, Axe Force also rocking a pizza, so they've got 3 pizzas to split, just in case things start to get a little bit sticky here, and don't think that they're feeling all that pressed for time.
Yeah, they've put themselves in a good spot here, right? If they've done a bit of damage early on, again, they'll be in a good spot as far as being able to sort of get ahead if someone continues to pull towards the south. And again, as we get into these sort of 5th, 6th, 7th zones, it really becomes about trying to limit as much damage as possible while keeping your materials up.
Hydro really holding on, though, to one of the more star power items throughout this current meta. Those Flowberry Mist Grenades just making the height takes or retakes a huge possibility. Obviously, you want to hope to not expend those on your rotates because we've seen just how quickly shields can be dwindled.
This is a team I'm interested to follow today. Lucia and Howley, 2 players with, again, a lot of experience in EU, a lot of experience playing in this type of heat format where you have to win to get in. And Lucia especially is someone who, in the past, you know, I've always felt almost comfortable predicting to win games in heats, right? Howley, I remember back when he played with Eltenzi a couple chapters ago as well, he sort of surprised people as being a player who could, you know, shock people in heats, and so we'll see whether that experience can shine through. Experience has been the conversation in EU when it comes to the heats, right? A lot of our experienced names of the past struggling to get past some of these newer, hungry duos.
Stan, definitely hungry for some damage right now. Kurama going to be on the receiving end of some tags, but 157 below. Still a decent ways to go. And we know that with Net Surge, things can change at a moment's notice, but for Six and Stan, this is still a rather complicated position to be in. They've at least got slight leverage just being in an elevated position, and we can see some of these duos from that north side trickling into zone, but everyone doing a great job at just keeping themselves tarped off. They're not really providing much opportunity, and the longer that you stay having a peak, the more susceptible you are to return damage, as well as those surge ticks kind of bearing away at their HP bar. Stan and Six losing one of their Flowberry Mist Grenades already, still 48 below. Only need a handful more shots to connect, but the openings are just so slim. The opportunities, not many.
Yeah, the difficulty of the spot they're in is obviously not wanting to waste the positioning. If you can skate by on this surge and out heal while other players tick down, you can use the elevation you have to get some damage, but when you leave yourself exposed like that to try and get damage, you also leave yourself susceptible to taking it as well, and that is what happens here for Stan. Axe Force gonna continue knocking at the door, and they'll know how much pressure Stan is on, so they'll just play the waiting game if needed. They can take their time with this one.
We knew that they wanted that positioning earlier on. They made the right choice, though. They already got what they were primarily after, and now Stan, out of desperation, gonna try to make a play, but that's just gonna be another easy cleanup here. A whole refresh to practically 5-5-5 now for Axe Force, and Robob just continue wrapping around the hillside, getting to preserve so much more of their material in comparison to some of these other teams. Tripper and Hellfire still trying to make it through. Marco on his last legs, and that's just not gonna be enough. These last minutes, last couple of seconds, really. Howley still trying to break into edge of zone, but the later you are, the easier it is for teams that are already based up to take advantage of your position.
Yeah, there's been for an A-class lesson on zone priority, right? A lot of these teams who have just been stuck behind other groups of teams are just getting absolutely rinsed right now. And again, if you find yourself having to wait for a team in front of you to rotate, it feels like you're just leaving your game in their hands. And unfortunately for Chap and Flixie here, that might just be their story. We've seen great clutches from solos throughout the heat stage, but it doesn't look like Chap is going to be giving us one here in game one. Not much to work with at all now, and only a matter of moments away probably from being taken out of this game completely.
Chap's an incredibly competent fragger, but unfortunately all the odds just stacked against them. The silver lining is that this is a rather south pulling zone, and in comparison to where they're originally starting off at, it's difficult to go cross country around the map like that, right? So first game struggles, nothing to get too pressed over just yet, but sizing back into where Sky and Scroll a little bit of woes during the divisional cup, so it's getting practice when zones were actually pulling to them and maintaining their surge, and they've done a great job at remedying those issues. 516 above, you can see, and they have just managed to just maintain such a stronghold position, preventing other teams from being able to rotate through them.
Yeah, I've been able to spend a lot of the time just picking off players, running towards them, right, and seeing the effects of that. Deemish and Dom, what happened here? HP looking low. Alright, Fanayan, probably not his greatest moment there, but you'll take that if you're Deemish and Dom.
Absolutely no complaints for the Poles by any means. Gentle mates, though, gonna need to make some noise here for Akira and Karama. They are certainly struggling. No way to replenish their shields. Just gotta keep moving forward. Fortunately, they won't have to deal with the surge ticks any longer, but time is still refresh, and a lone moneymaker might potentially deliver it, because the desperation is going to kick in one more time. Karama have an idea that might have gotten a glimpse of where Moneymaker was, or at least knew that there was that one solo straying by, but they might have just missed it by a mere second. So Moneymaker will be able to evade Frenchies for right now, but they're still going to continue wrapping up over this hillside, trying to keep really difficult time here finding those additional tags.
Yeah, again, we know how talented these two players are, but at the end of the day, when you're working with sticks and stones, it can be difficult to find a footing. And again, it just tells you the difficulties of trying to find Surge in this lobby. We saw, and it maybe took these guys just a bit too long to get involved in all of that madness, and now they find themselves behind. Karama with just the one build won't be able to stay in it, and he's not the only big name team struggling to stay in the game. Dom in the box gets caught out. You don't see him losing many fights like that, but it goes to show, Taco, just how intense these games are right now.
Just caught a bit off guard there by the way Podesai and Asa just aggressively challenged them inside their box, but happens to the best at times. Pablo, Gino, excellent job. Eagle Eye View currently, even though they're not on total height, they have still managed to make their way through on the secondary height, and wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe even take a stab for overthrowing Sky and Scroll. But with all these teams kind of just catapulting themselves forward, connecting to the other end of that hill, just across. X-Force, Robot, out of zone, likely going to elevate just a bit here. And making it over the hill is a huge deal, because so many teams are just going to get caught in the congestion underneath it.
Yeah, but they're going to have to start putting in work with their shotguns, right? Because Axos and Robin running very low when it comes to materials. And so you see them box up, make the 2x2. They were looking for a fighting potential. But with the zone actively moving away, they're going to have to do it on the next moving zone. Sangyo and Fredoxy potentially looking to make a play here. Will they look for height? Right now, it's just moving towards the front of the zone. Roban just trying to stay alive in the game right now. His shields are depleted. Fredoxy jumping in boxes. That's not where you want to see Fred right now, and it's going to be his former duo taking him down. Chino, Pablo still alive now, and the fight for height continues. It's getting hectic up there with